So, any notes about the game yesterday?
Well, I'll just drink my water here. I actually was going to bring my big Santa hat that Pete gave me, but I was running late, so I didn't grab it.
Okay.
I have a good joke, though.
Okay.
So what's the difference between Lucky Charms and Notre Dame? One belongs in a bowl. I knew Patrick was going to be upset with that one.
So you be careful, because
I got to be careful. There might be some Alabama fans in here. Yeah, come see me after January 7th.
yeah.
I might not be as jovial. I don't know.
So we're going to be kicking off during this week, not until after New Year's.
Right, January 2nd is
January
the
2nd.
official start.
Official
but
start
you
of
can
our
start.
of our annual church fast.
Yes.
And
21 days.
Good. We have one person excited. Yes. That's to be expected, I think, when it comes to the idea of fasting. And so Pastor Tammy and I wanted to talk a little bit today about what it is we're doing, why we're doing it, and then also to set you up for success. Help you get some understanding of successful and not successful ways to do this. I'll start by letting you know just some information. If you wanted some information about different types of fasts you can do. You're like, if there's different types of fasts, I thought fast is just you don't eat, you just drink water. There are different types of fasts that you can do. Not everybody is made up to be able to do a water or juice only kind of fast. I can't do that. Maybe someday the Holy Spirit will make that work in me, but that doesn't happen now.
Only if you don't have to go into the office every day.
Well, that's just it. We've talked about this a while back, that that a lot of times you read this, but we lead different kinds of lifestyles. We work 80-hour jobs, and we can't just take a break from everything in order to just fast. And so, but on the site livingwordevents.com, the very first thing that should pop up is information about the All Church Fast. And when you click on that, there'll be information about some suggested different types of fasts you can do and which pastors are doing them, although it's linked from the Mesa site. But I'm doing the wheat belly fast, which is just no sugar and no wheat. You're like, well, that's easy. Try buying anything from the store that doesn't find anything without sugar or wheat in it. And so that's the one that I'm doing. There's a plan on there.
Part of that fast is to juice vegetables every day.
Yeah, and we do our juicing. And matter of fact, next Sunday we'll have out in the foyer some demo and some samples of different types of juice, ways you can do juicing for yourself, ones that we do, different recipes. To set you up for some success with that, but there are different fasts you can do. There's a Daniel fast. There's a juice fast that's on there as well. There's different plans that you could possibly choose from. This isn't. Remember, we're not a law church. Nobody's telling you if you're a member you must do this. That's not what we do here. This is something that we're choosing to do, to participate together, to go into a new year, and for a little bit about why. Let's talk a little bit about why we even fast. Mm-hmm. So if you want to take maybe some of the overview of what it is, why do we even do this?
Right. Well, I'd like to start with, why we don't. One of the reasons that we fast may have been in the past, you might have thought, well, I need to fast because I've just been eating so badly, right? Fasting is not a punishment for your body. It is not for you to put your body in a timeout. This is not because you're mad at yourself. This is not because you have felt like you've just gotten crazy with your eating, right? Fasting is not punishment for your body. Okay, so we need to get that out of the way right away, right? This is something that is good for your body. It's something that is necessary to do, similar to how we talk about how we take care of our cars, our vehicles, right? We put the right kind of fuel in our cars, right? Nobody uses leaded fuel really anymore in your cars, right? Because it would break your engine, right? Okay, but even when you put the right kind of fuel in your car, from time to time you need to do a system flush, right? That's really all a fast is it's a system flush, right? It gets rid of some toxins that have built up in your body, and it gets rid of some things that are maybe slowing you down or weighing you down, right? But that's all a fast is physically. But then spiritually, the reason that we fast is because it's an opportunity for us to tell our flesh, right? Even though we're not mad at our flesh and we're not punishing our flesh, right? But we are telling our flesh, you are not the boss of me, right? You don't get to call the shots here, right? When you understand that you are a spirit, the real you, born again you are a spirit. Your born again spirit has never wanted to sin, will never want to sin, right? Is completely 100% in love and in communion with Holy Spirit. Okay? Your spirit does not want things that are bad for you, right? So your spirit loves to fast. It loves the fast, right? And that's who you really are. You are a spirit. You live in a body, which is your fleshly body, and you have a soul, which is made up of your mind, will, and emotions. But those things, your flesh, your mind, your will, your emotions, those are your employees. They're supposed to be working for you, but sometimes they like to run the show. And sometimes you have to call them into your office and say, hey, get out of the boss's chair, right? And that's what a fast does. It says, what it does is it says, my spirit, because I am in communion with Holy Spirit, my spirit is the boss of this body. Flesh, you are not the boss. Emotions, you are not the boss. Even intellect, you are not the boss, right? Because there can be a way that seems right to a man, but the end thereof is death, right? So even the intellect can't be the boss, right? So sometimes we have to tell these things, you are not the boss. And fasting is one of the ways that we do that. And we get to say, our spirit gets to say, you know what? We're going to take 21 days and reestablish who's really in charge here, right? But remember, it's not because you're mad at your flesh. It's not because you're trying to beat up your flesh or beat it into subjection or beat it into submission, right? You are doing this out of love for your body and wanting to live longer so that you can do the work of God. Amen. Another reason that we fast, or another reason we don't fast, this is not to get God to move, right? I'm in a situation, I just need God to move, so I'm going to fast to show him I'm really serious this time, right? God has already moved, right? And so what we're doing when we fast, we're coming into agreement with what God has already done. Fasting changes us. Fasting doesn't change God. Fasting quiets our flesh so we can hear what God is telling us to do. That's why we fast, is so that we can, God's been trying to tell us the solution, but there's a lot of voices that are trying to tell us the solution. This friend over here is telling us what to do. This preacher on the TV over here is telling us what to do. This guy over here is telling us what to do. This book is telling us what to do. We just need to get quiet. And fasting helps us get quiet and hear what God is saying.
Right, and so your fasting is, if as Pastor Tammy said, there's a physical aspect to it, and that's a benefit you can get out of this. But looking at it from the spiritual standpoint, if all you're doing is just not eating, then that's all you're doing is just not eating. Spiritually speaking, a fast is not just about not eating. That there are things that should be a part of what you're doing as you fast, and there's some things that you shouldn't. And so I want to take us to Isaiah chapter 58. Going through this week and deciding what to teach us. There's actually a lot in the Word about this, and so I just really narrowed down on one particular aspect we wanted to look at. Isaiah chapter 58 and verse 3. The first thing we're going to get is the wrong picture. It says here, this is the Israelites being quoted, what they said. Why have we fasted, they say, and you have not seen? Why have we afflicted our souls and you take no notice? Right? God, what's up? We did the fast, we afflicted our souls, and it seems like you didn't care. This is supposed to work when we do this. In fact, this is God's response, in the day of your fast, you find pleasure and exploit all your laborers. He's saying, yeah, so you fasted, and then what you did is, I can't do anything, I'm fasting, and then made their laborers work even harder. Right? And it says, and indeed, you fast for strife and debate. It's pretty understandable. If you're not fasting correctly, then all you are is grumpy. So a lot of strife and debate can come out of fasting, especially if you got multiple people in the house fasting. So that's the fasting voice talking right now. And to strike with the fist of wickedness, you will not fast as you do this day to make your voice heard on high. Right? What you're doing, that's not going to get your voice heard. What you're doing, God's saying, that doesn't get my attention. I'm not impressed with you at the way you, as Pastor Tammy talked about, the way you beat your flesh into subjection, way you did, that's not impressing God. He says, is it a fast that I have chosen? A day for man to afflict his soul? Is it to bow down his head like a bulrush? You know what a bulrush is? I don't know. I meant to look it up.
I know that at one point there was something hidden in the bulrushes, but I can't remember. I think it's just,
A bush.
a thick
something.
bush.
Okay. And to spread out sackcloth and ashes. Would you call this a fast, an acceptable day to the Lord? God is posing a question, and to us, I think especially on this side of the cross, it seems like a rhetorical question, but to them it wasn't. Like, what do you mean? That's what we do. Right? We go around and we have to look like we're miserable and we're just suffering for Jesus. Well, it wasn't Jesus yet. They're suffering for God. Right? We're just suffering for you, Lord. Right? Sackcloth and ashes, it's depression, it's misery. And God's saying, do you think that's what I want? That's not what I want. And so he says, this is the wrong way. What's wrong with it? It's all about their works. Works. We learn that God is not about our works. And so this is what he says is the wrong way to do it. Now let's go to 6. It says, is this not the fast that I have chosen? To loose the bonds of wickedness, to undo heavy burdens, to let the oppressed go free, that you break every yoke? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry, and to bring to your house the poor who are cast out, when you see the naked that you cover him, and not hide yourself from your own flesh? Then your light shall break forth like the morning, your healing shall spring forth speedily, and your righteousness shall go before you. The glory of the Lord shall be your rear guard. Then you shall call, and the Lord will answer. You shall cry, and he will say, here I am. If you take away the yoke from your midst, the pointing of the finger and speaking wickedness, if you extend your soul to the hungry and satisfy the afflicted soul, then your light shall dawn in the darkness, and your darkness shall be as noonday. The Lord will guide you continually and satisfy your soul in drought and strengthen your bones. You shall be like a watered garden, like a spring of water whose waters do not fail. I don't know about you, but I've done some fasts, and that did not describe what I felt like. Interesting, though, he didn't talk a lot here about, in the first half of it was what they were doing that was wrong. But I found what was interesting here in looking at the way a fast is supposed to be is the fast was not focused on what you are doing. The fast is focused on the result. What is talked about here is the results that came from them doing a fast. And that's what God wants you focused on. If you focus on the fact that I'm fasting and I am missing out on something, I am denying myself something. You create law out of that. And when you do it, what happens? Everything in you wants to break that law. Mm-hmm. As soon as you make it a law, that's the way we're wired. As soon as, even with me doing just a wheat belly fast, all of a sudden, as soon as I'm doing the wheat belly fast, there's things that are full of wheat and sugar that I don't even normally like that suddenly look good. Right? And it's that little bit of it because I put a rule on myself that the flesh now even more wants to do the opposite of whatever the rule is. And so if you make it about what you're doing, you're probably going to fail. But I make it about I'm doing this, right? This is not even the same league, okay? So, but understand the principle how it works, right? Christ, who for the joy set before him, endured the cross. Like, we don't have to endure a cross. It may feel like it sometimes when you're fasting, but we're not enduring a cross. But we understand that what I'm doing is I'm focused on what this can produce. That there's some things I need to break loose. I need some things. Anybody have some things they need to break loose in their life? Right? There's some things that maybe you've been frustrated that I've been praying for and believing for this to happen, and I feel just frustrated. This is a great reason to fast. Again, like what Pastor Tammy said, not because you're going to fast and God's going to go, oh, look how serious they are now. Here you go. Here's your answer. No, it is that I'm getting my flesh, and what's part of my flesh is my works. One of the reasons that we're often falling short of receiving that thing we're standing for is we're always looking for what do I have to do? Right, I haven't got the answer, so let me find a book to tell me why I'm not getting my answer. Oh, I didn't do that. Let's go do it. Right, and this is what we're doing. The fasting is to get that out of the way. And so, even in talking about it, I decided a couple of weeks ago that I wanted to teach us to teach on this morning. It's a difficult thing to teach because there's a very fine line we walk when it comes to fasting from doing it correctly and falling into works. Now remember, the purpose of a fast is to get your flesh out of the way. So we have to be careful not to make our fasting a work of the flesh. Now, when it becomes a work of the flesh, it'll become counterproductive. And I've done those fasts before where I made it all about the works, and it did nothing but just make me grumpy and hungry. And this was before I got a revelation I could do something other than just not eat. I tried to do a couple times, do the 3-day nothing, just water. Because they tell you, we'll do the unfiltered apple juice, but with my blood sugar, 1 glass of unfiltered apple juice, and I'm done for the day. So I'm stuck with water. And so all I was is just grumpy and hungry. Right? So it was focused on what I was doing and what I wasn't eating and what I wasn't going to have, instead of focusing on why am I doing this. And so I want us to before I get to that part, let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned that fasting is going to cleanse toxins of your body, which understanding that when you do that physically, sometimes it doesn't feel good, right? Especially if your body's been getting a lot of junk, especially these last couple of weeks. As I'm going through my house, I know this is wrong. I'm going, okay, so we still have like a lot of stuff from Christmas around. I'm kind of prioritizing, like which things do I need to just eat because there'll be no good after the fast is over, and I hate to see them get wasted. And which ones do I not really care about? Like, don't waste what precious time I have right now eating a cookie that I don't really even like. Like, let's stick to the ones I like and make sure I've eaten all those. I actually have my sister went to, she and her husband, after they got married, went up to Chicago. They did a road trip, and she brought me back these 2 boxes. Well, they used to be called Salerno Holiday Jingles. Anybody from the Midwest know what these are, right? They're like, there's companies out here that try to make them. They're not the same thing. They're little shortbread cookies, but they have anise in them, which just makes, they're so delicious. Nobody out here makes them, and so she brought me a couple boxes back, and she actually gave them to me for Christmas, but I haven't opened them yet, because I'm waiting until after the fast. Because if I open them now, I only need a few, and then they'll go stale. Saving them, I'm just for the joy set before me. On the other side of this fast, there are some they're calling them Santa's favorites or something now, but there's some holiday jingles after this. Christmas will keep going well into February. And then we had to make sure, because we booked a cruise to go on, kind of for her birthday and an anniversary kind of in there, and made sure we were going on a cruise during the fast. Because you go on the cruise for the food, right? Oh, well, I do. I go on a cruise for lots of good food. But talking about the toxins and things that get released, so sometimes when that stuff is getting flushed out of your body, it doesn't feel real good, right? Because it's been hidden in secret places in your body. You begin to fast, you do some things right, you get lots of water in your body, stop pumping in there, and your body starts leaching it out to get rid of it. And while it's doing that, sometimes it doesn't feel good. And so I probably shouldn't tell you this. You're like, I'm not doing this now. But there's sometimes the people who've done this that feel a little sick for a day or two going into it because your body's getting rid of some junk. But endure through it, because it's a lot better on the other side of that when you flush it out. But talk, though, spiritually.
Right. And so just like your body is flushing out toxins, and we know because now the science, that we've learned about how the blood in the body does that. Well, the blood in our body is the picture of what Jesus's blood does. And Jesus's blood flushes out toxins like doubt and unbelief. Remember when you just did the message a couple weeks ago about this kind goes out by prayer and fasting, and talking about the doubt and unbelief. Doubt and unbelief are toxic to your faith. And fasting will purge those toxins. And sometimes things will come up in you, just like when physically something will, I hate to be gross, something will come out of your body that's gross physically. But that can also happen emotionally, right? Anger can come up, or depression can come up, anxiety can come up, because these are toxins that are hidden, and you've been walking by faith to not let them have a voice, but they were still there. And so now fasting is going to bring them up. The important thing to do is to have the self-awareness that that is not you. Don't identify with the emotion or the toxin that comes up, right? What the enemy is going to want you to do, as soon as you get angry at something, the enemy wants you to go, oh, wow, I am so angry. I'm such an angry person. And you identify with it and take a hold of it and make it yours.
A lot of good that fasting's doing you.
Yeah, right? And that's exactly what the enemy wants to do. But remember, you are a spirit, and you are perfect in the sight of God because of his righteousness. You are not anger. You are not depression. Those things do not define you. That is not who you are. Those are toxins that are coming up as a result of the fast. You identify what it is, but you don't identify it that it's you or part of you, right? When it comes up, you do the same thing you do with a physical toxin. You flush it. That's the only way I can make you see it, is that that is a toxin. It is gross. Depression is gross, right? Anxiety is gross. Those are toxins. Yuck. Flush it. That's not you. That's not who you are. It is just a toxin that has come up as a result of the fast, right? And you say, and you identify with the fact that you are born again, spirit-filled, you are the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus. That anger is not me, and it has to go, right? And you take the authority that you have, and you flush that anger, and you don't let it. Now, is it going to try to come back the next day? The next hour? Maybe, right? Because we're fasting, right? And our flesh is like, I want to have a say here, right? Your flesh is like a 2-year-old, right? I want my cookie, right? And you say, nope, we don't need that right now.
Right, and so, and you may feel like, well, why am I, I haven't dealt with that for years. Why is this coming up now? Why would fasting bring this up? Because it was hidden. Right? You stuffed some things down inside there, and you thought you dealt with them. I overcame that. Now, I developed a tremendous amount of self-control to not deal with that, but it was still there. It's better to not just deal with it, but to get rid of it. Right? And that's what we want, because what the enemy likes to do with the things we don't get rid of, they become tools for him that he just uses somewhere down the line when it's the least opportune, well, most opportune for him, least opportune for you, time to bring it up. Right? Something you thought you dealt with, but at just the perfect time for his plans, boom, it starts coming out of you again. And so by getting this stuff flushed out of you spiritually as well, right, it's cleansing you, getting rid of some of the tools that the enemy could possibly use in your life. And I wanted to talk about just some practical things. There's a lot of, there's so many great examples of the right ways where God had people fast or people declare to fast and things work. I just encourage you, maybe do a little research yourself during this as well to inspire yourself in this. But I didn't want to go 100 different directions here this morning. But I want to give you a few pointers for setting yourself up for success in doing this. Maybe you're considering doing this, so here's some things that might help you be successful in it. Number one is give your fast a purpose. Right? And a purpose can't just be, the pastor said we're doing this. Right? That's probably not going to carry you very far. Give yourself a purpose. So you got a couple days anyway, till this starts. Maybe pray about maybe you already know what's the thing I need some victory over, but pray about what's the purpose? What does God want to do in me or in my home and family or in my business or in my ministry, whatever it is, what does God want to do? Give a purpose to what you're doing. I've had I think the first time, I know I'd done it before that, but the first one I really remember trying to do a fast was one that was declared for me, and it didn't go real well. Our band was getting ready to go overseas the first time, and the pastors who were organizing it told us, everyone who's going on a trip, you need to do a 3-day fast before we leave. And so it was like, tell me what to do. I don't want to. If the Lord shows me to do a fast, I'll do a fast. But all right, I'll submit. It's the leadership for this thing we're doing. I'll submit. And it was just 3 days of misery, and because I didn't have a purpose for me. And so you need to have a purpose for what you're doing. What do you want to see accomplished? What's the expectation that you have in doing this, and both physically and spiritually? What are some things you want to see take place? What are the dreams and visions you have for this next year?
But also because it is a church fast, there are things that if you're not really sure what you should necessarily be praying for yourself or for your family, just be praying for the church. Be praying for all our campuses, be praying for our pastors, be praying for our Bible college, whatever the Lord lays on your heart. But you can, because we're all doing this together, that there are things that we want to see accomplished together. So you can add that to the purpose of your fast as well.
Well, on that Living Word events site, when you go to the fasting section, there is for each of the weeks under, there are scriptures that are under that we as the pastors have all prayed about, and these are the scriptures that we want to be praying and emphasizing in each of the 3 weeks. Each of the 3 weeks has a little bit of a different emphasis on what we're praying on. So that gives you some idea of the things that we're unified on. Just to give you a couple like the big ones here, just at Living Word Ahwatukee. Number one is I got time to share just for a minute. Real quick. So we just signed a new lease here at our building, and on another day where I got more time, I'll tell you just how awesome it was the way God laid it out, and I knew I was following His direction, and we got a very, very favorable lease renewal here, and so we're going to be able to do some at no expense to ourselves, do a lot of great remodeling around our building to update the look and the feel, make it a little more current. We're going to be able to expand to the suite next to us. And have more space to do some of the things I know that we've had vision to want to be able to do. And so this is great. So a lot of great, exciting things going to be happening this next year here. We found out that the land next to us now, it's somewhat available. It is the owners of it want to do a long-term lease and have a developer develop something in there. So I'm excited about this because it's one of those, it's impossible. There's no way that could happen in the natural. And it's a huge thing, so I love those because I like having at least one of those in my life at all the time. I got an impossible to believe in. There's a lot of things I believe in, and I can see 90% of the way there how to make it happen, right? But this one, I got like 5% maybe. Right, so however God will make that happen, so be praying with us on that, however that would happen, to get the right people together to develop that and get a building over there. So that's a big thing that we could be praying on. But for you have that purpose and a vision. Give your fast a purpose. Whatever you give it a purpose. Now it's got a direction to go. I found that with my own little side business when I was just doing it. And I remember one day talking to our founding pastor, Dr. Tom, telling him, so I was doing this on the side. I'm just doing this to make a little extra money. And he just looked at me and said, "So let me guess, you're making a little extra money." "Yes, sir." "Yes, sir. I got it." And then I gave it a purpose. And I said, "Now I'm doing this to pay for my kids' college." Now I gave it a purpose, then it began to flourish more, and it's always done that. And it actually showed me now in his last few months to get a bigger vision. Okay, we got that. Now expand the vision. Give it purpose. Okay, now along with that is an important thing is to journal while you're fasting. You're like, I'm not a journaling person, which I'm not really a big journaling person myself. But talk to you a little bit about why that's so important.
A couple different reasons. One, the word tells us to write the vision, make it plain, so he who reads it can run with it, right? So you want to write down why you're doing this, but also as you're going through the fast, just like I was talking a minute ago about some of the things that might come up. If you write it down on paper, today I felt really angry and I don't know why that came up, or today I felt really depressed and I thought I had beat that back in 1982 or whatever, but writing it down helps get it out so that you're not stuffing it down inside. And so as you write it down and you get it out on the page, and then also writing down, what I like to do is before I start writing, I'll pray in the Spirit for a couple minutes, and then I'll start writing, and it's as if the Holy Spirit is writing the answer to me. He's telling me the answer to what I was praying about, because then I'm not trying to figure out the answer in my head, and he's giving the answer as I'm writing. And so there's a lot of different ways that journaling works that way. Sometimes it's more of an emotional reason that you would journal. Sometimes it's a connection, but also then to write down whatever you have set as your purpose. You know, I need an answer to this situation. As you journal through your fast, and then you go back and you read it, it will be a chronicle of watching the Lord work in this fast and seeing he did give me the answer. I didn't know this fasting thing would really work, but it did, right? And so just having that chronicled for yourself to go back, and it builds your faith later too.
It is, you are writing this down, because some of the things that you're going to be believing for may or may not manifest in the next 21 days. Mm-hmm. Right? And so it's very easy, because the enemy gets you back into the swing of how things were before. When you finish the fast, you forget. So when you write it down, you can go back and make yourself enough to go back maybe at least once a month and go read through that journal again, because it reminds you, oh yeah, I did get the answer to that. This is what the Lord showed me on this. Now, it hasn't happened yet, but I know because he showed me, right? He began the work, he'll complete it. Mm-hmm. You remind yourself, because nothing more the enemy would want is you to come out of the fast and feel like, well, that did nothing. Right. That was a ripoff.
I have a friend who...
Can I get my food back on that?
I have a friend who, when she would fast, she would not have a whole lot of mental clarity during the fast. So it was difficult for her to concentrate enough. Fasting is not necessarily a time to do an in-depth Bible study. Don't go try to study the Greek and Hebrew on something, because in 5 minutes you're like, I don't even know what I just read. But depending on what kind of fast you're doing. But her answer would always come like the moment she broke the fast and she got some food in her body, and then she was able to focus again, it was there.
But isn't that like, for instance, what the priest told Hannah, right? Her answer was, okay, you've been fasting, now go break your fast, clean yourself up, and boom, now the answer comes. Yeah. Right? And so there is some of that. You may not get the answer until after it's over. It's why it's so important to journal these things so you can go back and look on them. Okay, my third, real quick, is just set yourself up for success. Whatever kind of fast you choose to do, set yourself up so that you can do it. Right? So if I'm doing wheat belly, if I'm at home and I'm planning things, it's not that hard. But if I'm out and about doing my business stuff on the second half of the week, when I'm out driving all over the valley, I get stuck and I got no choice but to go to QT and get a roller or what, right? That's not helping. You saw a little into my world, and I'm not proud of it.
It's a little too transparent.
But sometimes, if you don't set yourself up, so if I want to be successful in a practical sense, okay, I know I'm going to be gone for a few hours. Let me pack some things I have with me that'll help me to stay on this, because I do get to the point sometimes with my blood sugar, it's like I got to eat something now, or I know the rest of my day is going to be a mess. And sometimes now there's nothing good around, so you got to pick something that's not good. So set yourself up for success in that. And the second part of that, though, the flip side of that is, don't condemn yourself if you stumble. Because what will happen is you choose to do this fast, and it could be in the first day, second day, you just mess up, you have that moment of weakness. You walk past the pantry and you saw the holiday cookies, and I can't wait till February to eat those. We'll stumble. You may stumble, but don't let that be a reason to quit, right? Because God's not. Remember, this isn't for God. Right. It's for you. It's like, oh well, I didn't do it right. I'm not going to get anything now, so may as well forget it. Right? Or the enemy, he gets you to day 19, and then you mess up. You're like, do I got to start over? No. If you stumble, just pick yourself up again. That's right. Right? It's an important part of this. Don't plan to stumble and go, right, because that's the flip side. People think when you go, well, grace, it just means I can just do whatever I want, and it's all good. I mean, you're going to get the best result out of this if you do it right, but don't allow yourself to be condemned and give up if you stumble. Right? And so, because, that condemnation will keep you from the good thing you could have had.
Right. Don't let one say you have something at a meal that really wasn't on, if you're doing the Daniel fast, and so it's supposed to be all fruits and vegetables and soups and, but I don't know, you had a piece of meat in there and you're like, oh, that's not on the Daniel fast, right? And so, you feel like that whole meal was blown, so you're going to blow the whole rest of the day, and then you blow the whole rest of the day.
I'll
so
start
you
over next week.
blow the whole rest of the week. No, it was one little meal, right? Maybe it was a quick down, make it a quick up, right? You pop right back up again, right? Don't let that one meal ruin your whole day. Don't let that day ruin your week, right? You get right back up.
Because remember, what are you doing? You are teaching your flesh that it's not the boss. But for a lot of us, we find more than we realized our flesh was the boss, and just because we declared it one day doesn't mean it's going to stop. Right? It's going to rebel. And so don't beat yourself up, because remember, that's not you, that's your flesh. Right? Romans 7, I encourage you, if you do stumble, go read Romans 7. Right? Paul says, the things I know I should do, I don't do. The things I shouldn't do, I do those. But here's the thing, I know that's not me that's doing those things and not doing those things. But we have to remember that. If you're like, all right, well then my spirit will fast, and my flesh. No. The fourth thing, I'm running out of time here, okay, is pray when you start and pray as you go. Right? Keep prayer as part of what you're doing. Again, because otherwise all you're doing is not eating. If you've ever felt like I've never really got clarity or got answers from God when I prayed, I believe that when you are fasting, you'll begin to feel that. You'll begin to sense it. You'll get those directions. And part of what you need to pray, and this is lead into where I want to end with this, is you'll get the grace to do it. For grace empowers you to do what your flesh can't do. Let me read this real quick before I get to this last little thing. But Matthew chapter 6. That's Matthew's before Mark and Luke. I was fasting already. Matthew chapter 6 and verse 16. This is what Jesus said about fasting. That's 7. There we go. It says, moreover, when you fast, do not be like the hypocrites, with a sad countenance, for they disfigure their faces, that they may appear to men to be fasting. Assuredly, I say to you, they have their reward. What's funny is that some people, that's what they want, is people go, oh, you're fasting. Right? You go into work, no, just leave me alone, I'm fasting. Fasting face on. Right? And he's saying, don't do that.
That doesn't work in our work, because everybody's fasting, nobody feels sorry for you.
Nobody feels sorry for you. Oh, you're doing wheat belly fast, wimp. It says, but you, when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, so that you do not appear to men to be fasting, but to your Father who is in the secret place, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. Right? He went through a whole bunch of things in this section of the Sermon on the Mount, talking about, don't do your things for people to look at and be impressed. Right? Nobody at work may be impressed, but you may be thinking, well, the people in my little Christian circle, they'll be impressed. Oh, you're doing a wheat belly fast? I'm doing juice. I'm doing a real fast. Right? We don't do that. We're doing it, but I want to talk about now how we do it. Now, remember back over here in Isaiah chapter 58, all the things that it talked about when God said, well, is this not the kind of fast that I like? And it was all about the results. It wasn't about the process of doing it. But what was interesting is, because we just read this last week, was all the things it talked about was almost phrased exactly the same way as Isaiah 61 that Jesus quotes in Luke 4 when he says, I have come, and what did he come for? Right, to bring sight to the blind and good news to the poor, to set those that are captive free. That's what it said was happening. And you remember what happened there in Luke. Right before that, Jesus had just done his fast. He had just fasted for 40 days, and he overcame the temptation of the enemy. Then he goes into the synagogue, and he reads this and says, this has been completed. So here's what you need. You need to know that when you try to do this, Jesus already did it. That we pull on his grace, See, he doesn't expect us to do anything that he hasn't already done and accomplished for us. So our flesh, we have a hard time doing something like this. So I have to pull upon the grace of God, not my works. I pull on the grace of God, and that empowers me to be able to fast and to see the results that Jesus saw. Right? Jesus said that was completed. He fasted, and he was reading Isaiah 61, but that was going back three chapters earlier, to saying that the fast would produce these things. Jesus launched his ministry by having this fast. Now, he did 40. We're doing 21, and we're not doing hardcore like Jesus fast. But we understand that we pull on what Jesus did for us, just like everything else that we do in life. Whatever the Word tells us to do that seems difficult, we pull on what Jesus did, not on me. Because I will fail at it. Because we get so used to letting our flesh have what our flesh wants.
Well, and our self-control can only take us so far. I remember when I first started fasting, and I remember when I did 3 days perfect. I'm like, I'm going to do 5 this time, right? And made it 3, right? Because that's what my self-control could do. I could do 3 in my own strength, right? But I love what Paul said. Paul said, I've worked harder than any of you. Not me, the grace in me. Right? I think of grace as like the little scrubbing bubbles. It works hard so you don't have to. Right? That's what God's grace does. Right? Don't go into this fast looking like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the hardest 21 days of my life. I don't know how I'm going to do this. No, you pull on the grace of God because the grace works in you. The grace teaches you. Right? You're going to get so much more out of this fast knowing that you're not doing it to get something from God. Going into it knowing that you're pulling on His grace, knowing that you're going into it to come into agreement with what Jesus has already accomplished. You're setting yourself up for success just having that mentality.
Amen. Well, if you guys get out of that this morning, give the Lord a hand.